Alright, in this video we are really going to focus on workflow. And by workflow, I mean how we organize our files and how we use different software tools together to work more efficiently. And I have ACL Festival's Instagram pulled up because I want to highlight that for an organization like ACL, you have a really big team that's putting out all sorts of different media, right? These photographs might be on Instagram, they might be on the website, they might be appearing in all sorts of different places. You're making a ton of different graphics, you're probably making these graphics in different formats, and you're working with a big team. So this is a much more complicated work environment than just sitting by yourself at home. And when we work in that kind of environment, we have to be really careful with how we manage our files and how we use our programs. And learning about this will also help you work better on your own. So what we're going to do is make one of these social media graphics in this demonstration. So the first thing I want to look at is our folder structure. I really encourage you to keep each project that you're working on in a folder. And you'll see here I have my Illustrator file that I'm going to be starting with. This is what we're going to make eventually. And then I have an assets folder. And when we think about assets, those are all the pieces that I'm going to use in my designs. So that might be things like background patterns. These are images, photos of singers. This is a logo. So we're going to bring those things together inside an Illustrator file. And that's what we're going to focus on today. So let's go into Illustrator. And I already have my layers set up. And the first thing I'm going to do is just make a black background for my design. So I'm just going to draw a black square here, and I'm just going to focus on my artboard here first. All right, the second thing I want to do is I want to put this square pattern in, okay? And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm first going to place one of my patterns onto the screen. So I go File, Place, and then I'm going to go to my Assets folder, and I'm going to find one of the patterns that I like. I'm going to choose this one, and this is what your cursor looks like at that point, and I'm going to click, and that places this image onto the screen. When I place an image, it means that I am putting a reference to that file in my Illustrator folder. So if this image changed, say I edited it in Photoshop, it would change in my Illustrator file, okay? And I'm just going to move that up to my pattern layer right here. And now I'm going to hit S to scale that pattern bigger. Okay, and I'm going to go about there. And now I want it to be a square. I know that I want it to be a square. So I'm going to get my rectangle tool. Okay, I can do there. I can hit M. And I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to draw a square. And I'm going to resize it just a little bit bigger. And then I want to make sure that it is centered on my artboard. So I'm going to use my align tools right here. And I'm going to do align center, align vertically. And then I'm going to create what's called a clipping mask, which means that I want to see this pattern only where I have this square. So I'm going to select both of them, make sure that my square is on top. And then I'm going to either hit Apple 7, Command 7, or I'm going to come Object, Clipping Mask, Make. All right. So I now have my clipping mask. I can resize this if I want to, scale it down. And if I want to change the placement of the image inside it, I double click to go into my clipping mask. I can get my pattern, and I can get a little bit more of that blue if I want to. And then I'm hitting escape to get outside. Okay, so just to quickly recap, what we've done is we've taken a file from my assets folder, and I've placed it onto this artboard, which is just a nice way of keeping my files separate. Okay, I might want to edit this pattern in Photoshop. It would then be updated, and we'll look at that in a second. All right, the second thing I want to do is I want to place a logo. So I'm going to come again, File, Place. And my logo is an EPS file, and an EPS file is a vector format, which means that I can scale it however I need to. So a lot of times logos, we really want to be vector files, and an EPS format is how you'll often get those. So I'm going to place that again, and then I'm going to bring it over and place it how I want it. Again, it's a vector file, so I can scale it up and down as much as I want. I'm holding down Shift to make sure that I don't distort it. And then I'm just going to align it here and eyeball it in the middle and say that that is good. All right, so now we're going to get to the interesting part. And what we're going to do is we're going to place an image of a singer onto my image layer. So I'm going to come File, Place, and I'm going to get one of my singers. We're going to start with this guy, and I'm going to place him on the artboard and scale him up. Okay, I'm going to place him roughly where I want him. Now, obviously, this is not right for what we want, right? If we think about these looks, everybody's cut out. It's a really popular look. So I'm going to go into Photoshop, and I'm going to come to that Photoshop file. Okay, this is singer1.psd. It's the same file that I just placed into my Illustrator file. And now I'm going to edit this. And when I edit in Photoshop, I always like to leave my original on a hidden layer at the bottom, just so that if I ever mess up, if I need to go back, everything's cool. So the first thing I want to do is just cut out the background. And currently Photoshop makes that really easy. So I'm going to come select subject, and it's going to think about it because it is doing some really fancy stuff to find the edges. Okay, so it found my subject is selected, and now I'm going to come to select inverse, which means select everything that I didn't select, and I'm going to hit Apple X or come edit cut, and I'm going to take away those pixels. All right, so now he's cut out. Photoshop did a great job, really nice, really easy, and I'm going to save my Photoshop file, because now when I come back to Illustrator, it's going to say, hey, you changed that file, do you want to update it? I do. And my file's now updated, which is really nice. So now I can take this, I can move it, I can scale it. I actually want it to be bigger because it has that really nice effect when he's kind of hanging out of the box. And we're there. And the nice thing is that I can continue to modify this file. So if I come back to Photoshop and we look at our demos, these are grayscale or kind of sepia toned. So I'm going to make this grayscale. In Photoshop, I'm just going to come Image, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation, and I'm going to take the saturation down. There are other ways to do this. This is just kind of the quick and easy way that we're going to do here. So, okay, save, and when I come back to Illustrator, it's going to tell me that it was modified, and I'm going to update it. All right, so we are looking pretty good already here. And now to finish off my project, I'm going to put some text in. And if we look here, we have this kind of really interesting text around the borders that they're using. So I'm going to do something similar to that. And you'll see I have two layers here, under image and over image. So I'm going to start by putting some text in, and I'm just going to type tickets. And I think that, you know, if we put it right here, it needs to have a different color. So I'm going to pick a color that I think goes with what I'm working on. Okay, that'll be kind of contrasty. And then I'm going to rotate it. So I'm going to hit R, rotate it, and then move it so that it is aligned the way I want it to. I'm going to align it to the middle of the artboard. And I like that. It's a little bit glaring, but it is also a little bit eye-catching. I might play with the colors if I wanted to. Now I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it into my under image layer and rotate it around the other way so that when I just lock that image, when I put it here and center it horizontally, I'm going to get that effect. I could keep playing with it, but that is the general idea. And this is nice because let's say that I'm working with a photographer who's really good at Photoshop. They're editing this photo. I can just point to their photo. So as they change things, maybe they adjust the curves of the image in a way that they want, right? They want it to be a little bit brighter. They save that. They're working over here. My file picks up their changes, right? Maybe I'm not sure how I want this to look, right? So maybe I'm interested in doing a gradient map here. And so I make that change. I save my file, I come over here, and my changes are there. Okay, so let's say that we're done for now. Okay, the next thing that I want to look at is exporting artboards. Okay, and if we come to our properties panel over here, you'll see that artboards have a name, and by default they're just artboard 1, etc. So I'm going to call this XYZ Fest Social 1. Okay. Now when I export this, so I come export for screens, you'll see that artboard 1 is selected. Make sure that this is, all right. Now when I export for screens, you'll see that this is now called XYZ Fest Social 1. I'm going to choose where I'm going to put it. So I might in this folder have an output folder, which is where all of my assets are being saved that are, say, going to go to Instagram. I'm going to choose this, and I'm going to export that artboard. It's going to be now named XYZ Social 1, so that if you are working on multiple files, you can keep track of them. If you're sharing it with others, you can share those, and you don't have everything named artboard. All right, so the last thing I want to look at is how you would use this if you were making a series of social media posts. So I'm going to delete this artboard, and I'm just going to duplicate this one, right? So I'm the graphic designer for, that layer was locked. All right, I'm the graphic designer for ACL Fest, and it's my job to like make 10 of these a day or something ridiculous like that. Now I can come over here and I'm just editing this one. So maybe I'm going to take out my image, put a different image in, move these things around a little bit, but I have a template that I can work from. And that helps me to put out all the images that I need to faster. So to review, the main concept that we're working on here is placing files into an Illustrator file. Other Adobe programs work the same way. I can place an image or something that I've created in Illustrator into Photoshop, into After Effects. This is how all of these programs work. That lets me edit my assets separately and makes my workflow faster and more flexible.